Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Alex Langer, who's the CEO of Sierra Madre, a Canadian-listed junior miner with two metal projects in Mexico, with their flagship project, the Guitarra Mine in Mexico's Silver Belt, recently gone into production. Alex is a successful public market specialist with over 20 years experience, starting his career with investment advisory with Canaccord where he helped fund over 100 private and public listed companies, including IPOs for Endeavour Silver, Fortuna Silver, and Great Panther. He's on the podcast today to discuss the history of the company, who are now obviously in production, what's next for the business, update on the silver market, and an update on the mining industry in Mexico. I want to give a good shout out to our sponsors, Hawcroft, who are leaders in property risk management in the mining industry since 1992. They offer insurance risk surveys, construction risk reviews, and asset critical assessments, and more. Working across 600 sites globally, Hawcroft supports mining, processing, smelting, ports and rail operations, and more. So if you're looking for property and insurance risk management services within the mining industry, then please visit their website at www.hawcroft.com, and all the details are in the show notes. Alex, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm really well, Rob. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, appreciate your time as well. So, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your career? Obviously, I mentioned your background is in the public markets. So, yeah, I'll hand it over to you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you hit most of the major points there for sure. But yes, thank you again for having me. My name is Alex Langer, and currently I'm the CEO and president of Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. I did start my career at Canaccord Genuity. I was there for from 2003 to 2008, 2009. And while I was there, I did a lot of IPOs, specifically in the mining industry, but also did a little bit of tech. But during that time, we did the IPOs for Great Panther, Endeavour Silver, Fortuna. So really got comfortable with Mexico, really got comfortable with silver. I left in 2009, and from there I've been working on the corporate side of things. So really structuring companies. My expertise is, I guess, capital markets, so funding, investor relations. I've been fortunate enough to be part of a couple successful M&As, which has been great. I was one of the first people involved with Millennial Lithium. We sold that for close to $500 million US, which was great. I've been part of Prime Mining, which is another very successful story, another Mexican project also based in Mexico. So I've been selective here and there, but I've worked with some really good people, and kind of the first time of really taking on the full CEO role in a company that I started, from scratch. Took a little while to get up and running, but over the last year and a half, we've really accelerated things, and now we're in full commercial production, which has really been exciting. A little bit different of a change, kind of being involved with companies that have started and then either sold or gone to other bigger companies. But now that we're actually at the reins and generating cash flows, and it's a pretty neat experience. I'm really enjoying it so far.
Yeah, good to hear. So I just wanted to just tell us a little bit about Sierra Madre and obviously the history of the company.
Sure, yeah. So I started the company, I guess about 6 years ago. I had kept it private for quite a while. I had been looking, honestly, for an investable silver story, something that could grow through acquisition, through ounces in the ground, and also kind of trying to minimize dilution. So again, when I was at Canaccord, I saw Endeavour Silver, I saw Fortuna. Both those companies really grew, and they grew through acquisition, they grew through production, and they grew through ounces in the ground, and I loved it. So just as myself, I was looking for something to invest in, and I didn't really find anything that really attracted me. Of course, if I liked silver, I could have had exposure through Endeavour or Great Mining, whatever that might have been, or Pan American. But I really like the growth potential. I like that high risk, a little bit, not super high risk, but more high reward opportunity. And so I built it. I was fortunate enough that I had some really good partners join on. One in particular is Greg Liller, who's our Chief Operating Officer and Executive Chairman. He's been a part of, I think, 7 or 8 mines that have now, gone from project phase all the way to development and production, which is crazy. You do it once or twice, you could be lucky, but to do it 8 times, I think there's something special there. So we partnered up. We scoured Mexico for a long, long time. We started with our first asset called Tepic. We were pushing that along. It was going really, really well. And then an opportunity came to acquire another project, and that was the Guitarra Mine. At the time, it was owned by First Majestic. It was on care and maintenance. They put it on care and maintenance in 2018. At that time, when they put it on care and maintenance, it was making money, but it was marginal for First Majestic. On a good year, it was producing close to 1.5 million ounces of silver equivalent, and really wouldn't move the needle for them. So they had on care and maintenance, and we came along. We had tried to purchase it a couple times, and they had asked us what our plan would be with it, and we put it forward, and they really liked it, and they do really like the project. So yeah, they sold it to us. They're by far our largest shareholder, so they own about 45% of the issued and outstanding shares. Management, we still own about 25% of the issued and outstanding shares, including founders, which is really high, I think, for a company at our stage. I've invested well over 1.6 million Canadian myself into the company. So I think management were well over 3 million invested, which is, a good number. I think that's really important when you're looking at these companies that management has skin in the game. And, we had guided to the market, we'd be in production, and, if all went well in 2 years, and we did it in 13 months. So it goes to show kind of the stage where the mine was, how well First Majestic had done in care and maintenance. And really, there was a bit of an impetus with the silver and gold prices really starting to move that allowed us to get into production quite a bit quicker and, start to generate cash flows, which are great, especially at today's prices. Things have gone quite well.
Yeah, certainly. And as you mentioned, Majestic Silver owns 44.5%. They also have a 5 million loan at 15% interest on the books. So I suppose you're tied tightly to obviously a big player. How do you keep Sierra Madre independent as more of a junior producer?
Yeah, no, that's a very fair question. So, when we try to buy the project, we were interested in maybe giving them cash. They didn't want cash. They really believe in the upside of it, more so on the exploration as opposed to the production side, which will grow as well. But the reason we bought it as well is the exploration upside. So they've been fantastic. They provided us with that $5 million loan. We had a bit of a budget shortfall to get into production. When I purchased the mine, I did raise 10 million Canadian. On the back of it, that was actually earmarked for exploration. But with the silver and gold prices kind of changing, we thought, let's put it all into trying to get the mine back up and running. And we had a bit of a budget shortfall. And fortunately for us, First Majestic was there. I had looked at equity. I had looked at debt, other forms of debt. I looked at royalty, offtake. And this was by far the cleanest option for us, which is great. And they provided it. So keeping us independent, pretty straightforward. They don't have a board seat. They're really just equity shareholders. They really believe in the upside of the mine. And again, they've been really, really supportive kind of all the way through.
With cash flow flowing in from the Guitarra mine, exploration's likely obviously on the table. What would your exploration priorities and initial plans be once you start the actual exploration program?
Yeah, so it's we've been focused on production, absolutely, and that's kind of been the focus the last 2 years. But again, the reason we purchased the mine was for exploration upside. So it's about 28,000 hectare property. We're located just outside of Mexico City. It's about a 2.5 hour drive, including traffic. So in terms of location, it doesn't get much better. There's power, there's water, there's roads. It's a really great spot to be. We've now actually identified over 60 kilometers of vein material at surface. This area used to be one of the most prolific and historic producers of silver gold from the 16, 17, 1800s. It was once known as the jewel of the Spanish crown of New Spain in the 17, 1800s. So really, really significant. There's actually 8 former producing mines within the project boundary. Very rare for a junior of our size to have the ability to explore 8 former mines. You maybe have 1 or 2, but we literally have the whole district, which is really exciting for us. So the plan is, we've done a bunch of mapping. We're continuing to do that. We have 3 full-time field geologists. So out in the field, we're finding veins all the time. And what we want to do is generate income from mining, which we're doing right now. Once we have about 3 million US that we have earmarked, we really want to give it a really good pass. 3 million US would give us about 20 to 25,000 meters of diamond drilling. Where we are in Mexico, it's quite inexpensive, which is great, and really give it a proper first pass. There's 2 areas in particular that we really want to start to drill. That's the East District, and there's 2 mines located there. One is Mina de Agua, and the other one is El Rincon. So Mina de Agua shut down in about 1910, had about 10,000 employees during its peak, one of these old kind of colonial mine styles. They got a little bit too deep. It flooded, and nothing's happened ever since then. El Rincon, something similar. El Rincon, they got a little bit too deep. It flooded in 1930, and nothing's happened since then. However, at El Rincon, the head grade of the final 10 years of production was about 6.5 grams gold and 850 grams silver. So some of the highest grade material I've ever seen. That's a prize, and that's why we're really excited for it. First Majestic noticed this as well, and they purchased a large piece of land right in El Rincon, for $800,000 US, about 150 hectares. That has a MIA on it, so it has an environmental permit, which means we could start mining from that area. We could put in a drift, we could put in an adit, so it gives us a lot of optionality and flexibility, and hopefully we'll find what we think we could find, and could be an area to build another mill or another large operation down the road. So lots of upside, but I think we need to save about $3 million US specifically for exploration, and then we'll get off and running within that area.
Yeah, you've obviously been involved in mining for a while. What's one decision you made early on at Sierra Madre that you would take back if you could? And how does it shape your approach to running the operation today?
Yeah, it's a fair question. Things have gone quite well. I've really been able to rely on my directors and Greg's experience and the rest of the management team, which has been good. A couple things. I guess when we purchased La Guitarra, we were halted for just over a year. It was a long time. I had only thought it'd be 5 to 7 months, type thing. We had issued more shares than we had in treasury, so it took a while. And I think, as a shareholder, you want to have liquidity. That's one of the reasons why companies are public. Different opportunities, there's different spaces people want to go to. So having people locked up for over a year wasn't great. Our share price was affected by that, I would say. Once it happened, people needed liquidity, people need to sell. Also, silver had kind of dropped off during that time, so it worked out okay. But other than that, I've been really happy with everything they've done. We've kind of set out our goals, and we've actually been able to achieve them all the way along. And I think that's really important, is you want to set expectations and meet them or beat them. And that's important. So when we were halted, I had guided to the market, maybe 7 months, but it was closer to 13, unfortunately. Other than that, things have gone quite well, but I would have, guided that we're not quite sure how long this will take, but we're hopeful on shorter end, and it was much longer than we had expected.
You've got a team with prior history at the Guitarra from obviously the early days, as you mentioned. Greg Liller, your current CEO and chairman, used to be previous operating at the asset during the days of Genco. How is he tailoring his approach this time around to help you achieve your strategic objectives?
Yeah. No, that's great. Again, so I think it's really important to understand is Greg and the majority of our technical team work and ran the La Guitarra mine while at Genco. So they had purchased a mine from Lewisman. It was running about 80 tons per day. They brought it up to 500 tons per day, which is now the capacity of the mill. Ran really, really well. Eventually, that company merged with Silvermex, and then that's what First Majestic had purchased, was Silvermex, and this was in the portfolio as an operating mine. So Greg has a rich and deep history. He drilled about 111,000 meters of the 236,000 meters drilled at La Guitarra. So we understood a lot of skeletons in the closet, what works, what doesn't, also some of the higher grade areas, and he's been quite successful. He had, put in El Cubo, which has probably produced, huge amount of silver and gold in recent years. And when he sold that, when he was part of Gammon Gold, he had retired. And, he didn't need to work again. He's probably, retired 3 or 4 times, and he's come out of retirement just because he loves it so much. But he tells the story of how he's invited to La Guitarra. And, he went just because it's a neat area outside of Mexico City, and he wanted to see it. And he said within an hour, he knew there was something special there. He truly feels it is, one of the largest undeveloped silver districts in all of Mexico. So he jumped at the opportunity. Unfortunately, when it merged with Silvermex, he lost the mine. And the way he says, there hasn't been a day that's gone by he hasn't thought about trying to reacquire La Guitarra because of the exploration potential and what he sees there. So a lot of the vision we have is based on him and the rest of the technical team. And, we've been able to push things forward quite well. Community relations, things like that. They had a really good history there within the area. So people were really excited and happy to see the mine, operating again, and Greg kind of leading operations down there.
Yeah. Obviously, been involved in the capital markets for over 20 years. With that being said, it's not your first time in dealing with, obviously, a gold and silver bull market. How significant on sort of the current prices and price levels of gold and silver for Sierra Madre? And are these price levels seen as a welcome surprise, or are these prices required for sort of long-term success of the project?
Perfect. I'll touch on that on a couple aspects.
Yeah.
So first, that's one thing we can't control. As the CEO of a public company, I can't control the price of metal. I'm not JP Morgan. I can't do it. But I'd love to be able to, see where silver and gold is going. So what I can do is I can control my costs. When we acquired the mine, again, as a past producer, so I knew my costs inside and out. We didn't move into production without a feasibility study or a bankable feasibility study or a definitive bankable feasibility study, which has quite a bit more risk. However, feasibility studies are really more guesstimates than they are practical information. So we went through all the old historic data. I was very comfortable with what the cost would look like. We had agreements in place with the union. I had an excellent offtake agreement with MRI at Zug, Switzerland. So it gave me a lot of comfort to push forward with starting test mining and then eventually into full production. Whenever I ran my models, I ran gold at 1800 and silver at about 22. At the time when we purchased the mine, that's right where silver was. And I obviously had to discount that, enough that I would be comfortable if things moved or prices moved. And what we have seen is a great increase in gold. It's almost double, my base case scenario. And silver, I think we'll catch up eventually, but at $30 silver, it's excellent. So it gives us a lot of leeway. We've had little wrap-up issues here and there. We've gone through more pumps than I knew existed in the world. But again, with the amount of extra cash flow we are generating from the higher silver and gold prices, it's been great. So what I love about this mine in particular is the costs are relatively low. I think you always want to be on the lower end of the cost curve in case things happen, in case there's global issues with, silver or gold or, extra tariffs or whatever it might be that's happening in the world. You always want to be able to handle those downturns, and that's really important, and we're able to do that. Now, in the good days, which we have right now, it's great. Every dollar the silver price goes up is really significant to our bottom line. It's straight revenue, which is wonderful. So we get the full upside benefit of that, and I think it's great. And it's one of the reasons why I really wanted to build a mid-tier silver company, and I think that's what we're going to do. Again, I'll take Fortuna and Endeavour Silver as examples from a previous work at Canaccord. There was an incredible silver bull market. I saw these companies go literally from 10 cents up to $12 and trading on NYSE and trading millions and millions of shares a day. So when these things happen, it can be really, really exciting. So we have that opportunity again, and I think La Guitarra is a perfect project for us to launch Sierra Madre into that, and we're always looking for new acquisitions as well. But we have the base case. We have a great operating mine that's going to be lower end on the cost curve, which is important. But if silver or gold or anything's really, really take off, and I'm quite confident they will, we'll be ready, which I think is important. So it's a long answer to your question, but I hope I touched on all the points there.
Yeah, certainly. Just wondering if you give us an update on the mining industry within Mexico, and maybe any legislation changes or talk of certain legislation changes that may be coming up.
Yeah, no. So Mexico, it's the largest producer of silver. It's such a huge part of their economy that it's really important. It provides a lot of workforce, a lot of jobs for communities and for people, families. So it is a really big part of the economy in Mexico. When we did acquire La Guitarra, there was indications that open pit mining would be banned and new permits hadn't been issued in a long time for some really good mining projects. So when we went out to look for a project, we really wanted something that was fully permitted. And so we were quite fortunate that La Guitarra was fully permitted. First Majestic did an amazing job in terms of their community relations and environmental permitting and all of that. So they're all up to snuff, which was great. What I've seen recently, there's been a change of government. Claudia Sheinbaum is now the president of Mexico, and it's gone, much better than I could have possibly expected. It's the same party that was in there before, and they had, put a lot of uncertainty about open pit mining or new permits for mining, and uncertainty in the market really, really hurt. So there was a big discount in Mexico for quite a while on all these projects. But recently it's been great. We've seen open pit mines now being permitted, new permits being issued. They've really taken a different tact in terms of, the importance of mining and the jobs and everything that it means for Mexico. So we've been really, really pleasantly surprised at how great the current administration has been in terms of mining in Mexico and allowing permits to be placed for, proper work that's been done and environmental and technical work, and if you're able to do that and you submit your permits in a timely manner and everything looks positive, people are getting permits, and that's amazing. So it's really a big bonus for the whole sector and gives me and I think a lot of our shareholders are confidence in Mexico. So it's a really big positive the last little while here, more so than I could have expected, but really, really happy about it.
Yeah. Coming from North America, Trump is now in, obviously, administration now. Just wonder what your thoughts are on the mining industry moving forward and obviously his impact. Obviously, there's lots of talks of tariffs everywhere. How would you say that's going to affect the mining industry? And also, how would you think it's going to affect Sierra Madre as well?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think, especially our U.S. project, it's going to be beneficial. I've already seen some other mining projects that I've invested in have done quite well. They have a more grown at home, obviously, thought, especially when you're putting on tariffs. It's more to stimulate the U.S. economy and things like that. And so any project in the U.S. is going to be kind of buoyed up with that. They have a lot of extra capital for mainly battery metals, I've noticed, in terms of project financing or even financing towards feasibility study, things like that the U.S. needs. So that's positive. Obviously, when you become, I guess, insular in terms of a country, with your trading partners, which were the closest, which were Mexico and Canada, it's not great, especially perception. With that, the U.S. dollar is gone stronger. Canadian dollar has obviously come off, also the Mexican dollar. Now, 90% of our costs are in Mexican pesos. So our mining, our all-in sustaining costs have come down because of that. And we're selling a product in US dollars, which has been great. So in that regard, our costs have come down, which is positive. Now, I think a lot of it is conjecture and, talk per se, and I think it'll all settle out and the US will kind of open up their arms a little bit to have Canadian and Mexican projects kind of part of that. So I think longer term it's going to be fine. For us in the short term it's been good, and I think longer term it's going to be quite strong. Again, we're selling a commodity, gold and silver, which is usually used as a counterbalance to inflation and the risk of currency risk in certain areas. So it's been positive. So we'll see what happens. I think it's a lot of talk for the time being, but I think we're fortunate enough to be in an area where we're close enough to the U.S. and also a product that we can sell anywhere in the world. Silver, gold is obviously highly valued, so it gives unlimited markets for us to sell as well.
Yeah. And last, what's the short to medium term outlook for Sierra Madre? And also, is there anything else you want to share with our audience? Our audience are generally people within the mining industry and spread all over the world.
Yeah, I think the next little while here is we're really excited to share our financial results. I've had to be so careful in terms of what we can discuss. We did have our biggest, I guess, production quarter or month in January. We're not going to really have any more news until year-end financials, which should be in April, so not too far away. We'll be able to talk about how much our revenues were for 2024, and then the big news will be about a month after that for quarter one 2025. We'll be able to give it an all-in sustaining cost. People will really be able to understand what we're mining and what that looks like and what those revenues look like. One thing I do want to touch on is the plant itself. We feel quite confident increase production relatively quickly and hopefully out of cash flows. The plant itself is rated for about 516 tons per day. However, the flotation cells as well as the filter presses are good for about 1,200. The jaw crusher is good for about 640 tons per day. It's a grinding circuit, which is the biggest bottleneck. So we currently have 3 ball mills. One's about 240, the other one's about, just under 200, and the other one's about 80. There is a fourth ball mill. It doesn't work, so we would look to replace that. To buy a new ball mill, say a 400 ton per day, is maybe $1 million, $1.5 million US to install it. And that would let us get up to 640 tons per day, so close to a 30% increase, which would be great. And we want to do that at cash flows. So we kind of got it to the market now that by 2026, we'd love to hit about 640 tons per day. Then we go to about 740. And if all goes well, we want to hit double production, about 1,000 tons per day towards the end of 2027. We feel confident we can do that out of cash flows. There's space in the mill. Right now, the underground mine is doing really well. We have more material than we need. It's really just the bottleneck. So once we have enough cash flows, and we do have to be aware we want to pay back the first Majestic loan. We also want to do some exploration, and we also want to increase throughput in the mill. So we're just weighing through that. I think number one is probably going to be increasing throughput in the mill, which I think the market would like. If we can get over 2 million ounces of silver production equivalent annually, the market really likes that. You get a much better multiple, especially on the silver side. So that's what we want to do, and we want to kind of probably accelerate that, and we can do that relatively easily. I think to get up to 1,000 tons per day after the ball mill, it's not going to be a huge amount of capital, maybe 4 to 5 million US. Again, not a huge amount of money, which would be great. And that would, in essence, double revenues. Theoretically, your costs come down, all of that good stuff. So we have the ability to expand operations relatively quickly. I think that's important as well, beyond the story of the exploration and everything else we're doing.
Yeah. Alex, thank you for your time. Really appreciate you coming on the show, telling us about Sierra Madre, the Mexican mining industry, and giving us an update on that. And appreciate your expertise in what you've just discussed. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they want to follow the story, how can they go about doing that, and what social media platform channels are you on?
Yeah, I think we're on most of them for sure, but easiest would be our website, Sierra Madre Silver, Gold and Silver. You can Google it, it'll pop right up, and then we have a button there for email address that goes directly to me, so happy to respond anytime. If not, you can follow us on Twitter, on LinkedIn. We're quite active as well. So yeah, looking forward to any questions that might come around. And thanks again, Rob. I really appreciate it. And I know we're both off to Toronto next week. So PDAC with 40,000 of our closest friends. So looking forward to that, and hopefully stay warm.
Yeah, certainly. Looking forward to it myself, and hopefully we'll catch up whilst we're there.
Look forward to it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode. As always, appreciate your continued support. Please keep sharing those episodes far and wide. And not just people within our mining industry, but people outside of our mining industry. If we're going to improve the image and educating people within, I suppose, globally about what the mining industry is about, and especially about gold and silver, as Alex has alluded to, we do need to share this educational content to people outside our industry. So thank you for listening, and until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.